So last week, there was this, or I guess it was a couple weeks ago. I don't know, sometime in the last
Mhm.
in the blur that is the last 2 weeks for me. There was a Twitter account, couple of Twitter accounts, couple of people that were sharing news about, hey, Blumhouse has picked up A Nightmare on Elm Street, and there's a new Legacy sequel coming. And I was like, okay, I haven't heard that anywhere else. I mean, we covered this a long time ago when Jason Blum had said, "Oh yeah, I would love to pick up the rights to Friday the 13th and A Nightmare on Elm Street," and we knew that Wes Craven's estate was taking pitches for a new Elm Street project, but it was never confirmed by Bloody Disgusting or by Variety or Collider or any of the major trades that that was ever happening. And usually when a studio picks up a property as big as A Nightmare on Elm Street, somebody picks it up. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And nobody had picked that story up. And suddenly everybody came out and I mean, you know how quickly rumors spread on the internet nowadays. And it was just people were throwing it out everywhere that, hey, Blumhouse is doing a new Elm Street trilogy. It's going to be a legacy sequel to the original, which of course kind of spiraled people being like, oh, is Robert Englund going to come back? Is Heather Langenkamp going to come back? Is Nancy, like, is everybody coming back to do all this stuff? And it was very quickly shot down as not being true. Like, people from Bloody Disgusting, a lot of the bigger horror YouTubers did videos on it. People that are attached to Blumhouse and Universal and some of these things were like, no, like Blumhouse has not picked it up. That's not a thing. So that happened, but that kind of got me thinking, and it's a question that for the big three, for Halloween and Friday the 13th and Elm Street, there's kind of a big question as to what should come next. Like, what should the next chapter in those franchises be? So I thought we would have a little bit of a dialogue about what the next chapter for Elm Street should be, because we've already remade it. Really, you could argue that for all three of these. All three, like the big three, have already been remade. That's already happened once. So do you remake it again? Do you go the TV series route? Do you do a sequel to the remake? That's probably not going to happen because their remakes are all over a decade old now. So there's kind of a big question as to what happens now. What do you do
Mhm.
with it? How do you keep it interesting? Hatchet said he hopes Blumhouse doesn't get it. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. And here's why. That is not at all a
You
knock
want
at.
A24 to get it?
I mean, I wouldn't complain.
No, they got
I
too many
wouldn't
projects to
complain at
deal with.
all.
A24 is doing just fine with like their other project that they have. I don't know if you've heard. Like, I mean, I think out of the two films that have been out so far, like the one I'm really excited to see is that recent installment of The Mentor, or that vampire
The
movie,
Demeter, yeah.
and A24 is Talk to Me, because
I've
I
heard
hear
good
that on
things
the
about Talk to
TikTok
Me.
sphere, the Twitter sphere so much.
Really?
So, and the premise is, I mean, the premise seems, I don't know, pretty straightforward and simple, but people are like craving about it. And
Craven.
I think, I don't know. Yeah.
Craven.
Mhm. But I don't know. I mean, it's something I'd definitely be willing to want to check out, mainly because of the fact that A24 has been making some slam old titles in
Right.
recent years. So for me to think that A24 would be even want a project like that, I mean they're doing just fine right now with the project that they're throwing out right now. So
Yeah.
why 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 fuck up the momentum trying to, no offense, like, to the horror fans, but pander to uh, Nightmare on Elm Street fans, wishing that it's going to be a
Right.
good film, good franchise or trilogy or new trilogy, whatever the fuck they're going to try to do. You know what I mean?
Well, here's the thing. Part of me, I have a few thoughts here. Part of me feels that A24 should stick to their original stuff because
Mm-hmm.
they do it so well. But at the same time, another part of me is like, but their original stuff is so good and so different, and it's got its own like feel and vibe to it. I feel like if anybody's going to pull off a really freaky, weird, psychological, guttural Elm Street remake, I feel like they would do really, really well with it. And, you know, is it A24 that's doing the Crystal Lake series? I want to say it is. Let me see. A24. I'm like 90. Yes. So A24 is already picking up Friday the 13th because they're in charge of the Crystal Lake series. So that's another thing is we know that.
Fuck my opinion then, honestly, at this point. Yeah. No one fucking cares about my point. They pretty much said, hey, what you just said, Miguel, bullshit.
Yeah. As you were saying that, they're like, write that down. Write down everything he just said. Now put huge red X marks through it. The entire thing.
I'm pretty sure a lot of people on the fucking YouTube sphere and the internet's gonna be like, Miguel, that's already happening. So eat dick. So
yeah. Well, here's the thing. My thought with the Blumhouse thing. I enjoyed what they did with 18 Kills and Ends. I did. I've got my 18 Kills and Ends posters all behind me. I dug it. Were they perfect? No.
It's pretty much what started a lot of horror movie podcasts.
Right. I 100%, dude. I mean, I found this community during the Halloween 18 hype. Like, that's how I found the Wham guys and Dave and all of that stuff. I mean, that was kind of the birth of this channel, even though this channel didn't come out for, 2 or 3 more years after that. But,
yeah.
Anyways, I liked what Blumhouse did, but I kind of worry that they're doing the same formula because when it was Halloween and they announced they announced they were doing a trilogy. It was like,
formulas.
Sweet, that'll be kind of cool. And they were like, hey, we got The Exorcist and we're doing a trilogy, and it was like, The Exorcist Kills and The Exorcist Ends. Like, why are they doing a trilogy for all of them? Like Halloween, okay, I get it. But an Exorcist trilogy? I don't know if that's going to work. I hope it does. I have high expectations, and I'm optimistic.
There is confirmed sequels, correct?
Right, they're confirmed as of now, but
depending on how this one goes,
I think this first one is already a split theatrical direct-to-streaming release anyways. And as it stands, I think the other two are set to go directly to streaming. I don't even know if the other two are getting a theatrical release yet, for sure.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So it's like, the reason that I don't want it to go to Blumhouse is because I don't want it to follow the same legacy trilogy formula. I don't think that's going to work for everything. Just because it worked for Halloween doesn't mean it's going to work for The Exorcist, and doesn't mean it would work for Friday the 13th or It or Elm Street or any of the other major, Texas Chainsaw. Could you imagine a Texas Chainsaw Massacre trilogy?
Okay, hot take.
No thanks.
But no. And much love to all of these Texas Chainsaw Massacre fans, but my man, when you've had an opportunity to do a remake and it bombs so bad, I think it's safe to say that, like, bro, I'm not gonna lie, Texas Chainsaw Massacre's got to be the weakest franchise out there. The amount of hit and misses out there is probably the weakest horror franchise
of the big. Let's say the big 5: Halloween, Elm Street, Friday the 13th, Scream, and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think it's probably the weakest. It sucks because the first one is so good and the remake is so good.
Well, maybe it's one of those like one and done.
Bad.
Yeah, maybe it's one of those like one and done's kind of thing where like you honestly, the only thing you can do is remake the original at best. And because if I'm being honest, what do you think?
And I love the remake. I just did a whole 15-minute video on the TCM 2003 remake. It's great. It's my favorite of the big horror remakes. And honestly, I think there are some things that movie does better than the 1974 original, which I know is a bring out the John Wick guns thing, but
I mean, think about it like this.
I love
Here, let me tell you something, man. Here, let me drop some car knowledge on you, quick, okay? If you buy a first-gen car, you're almost guaranteed to have like problems because it's the first generation like vehicle or model. until,
Okay.
but like future models like down the road, when they start fixing these problems or making some things worse, like obviously the first gen could be like the best one out there, but obviously it's going to have some problems,
Yeah.
and there'll be future models or quote unquote titles that just do the film better. So I mean, that's just how that works. Okay.
Well,
But
and it. I know we're talking Elm Street here, but like the thing that I love about the 2003 remake is, like, I find it scarier because in the original film, yes, it's you feel isolated and it's grimy and the characters are scary. But the remake, there's something about the way it's shot and the way they handled the family dynamic in the 2003 remake that it just like you feel like there's nowhere to go. Like, even if I said this in my little deep dive video that I released a few weeks ago, but like, even if Erin and her crew would have escaped, if they would have made it six house, like, however far down the road, who's to say that those people aren't in on it too? Because practically everybody they run into in that entire movie is in on it. Like, you know what I mean? So it's just like there was nowhere to go. You felt so isolated. And even going back to Elm Street, talking like the Elm Street remake, I enjoyed the Elm Street remake for what it is. I purposely haven't watched it in a little while because we're going to get to it hopefully sometime soon. We're going to hit up kind of all of the horror remakes in a row on Purely and Simply Evil. But it just... I don't think that it was a bad remake. So again, it begs the question, what do you do? You've had a successful run of the original sequels. You've had a successful remake. You've done the New Nightmare thing that's kind of its own, like, it's like its own timeline type thing. And there, I mean, even like what Cecil Laird is doing. Cecil is doing the albeit unofficial, but I mean it's going to be spectacular. They're doing Dylan's New Nightmare. So like you have kind of that direction too. But for me, I think you can do one of two things. If you're going to do a film, if you're going to remake it, I don't think just remaking the original film would be quite as effective as doing a prequel. Now, again, I've said this before about Halloween. I'm not super picky about who they get to direct and what studio does it, if it's A24 or if it's Blumhouse or if it's whoever. That doesn't really bother me all that much. As long as they treat the story right and as long as they treat the characters right and they treat it with love and care and respect and they give it a little tap on the tush. But I just hope that whoever gets it tries something different while still paying homage and respect to the source material. And whatever company would get it, I would be completely down if they did kind of oddly enough taking the Rob Zombie approach, where it's like a prequel and a remake. Even though Halloween is different, it didn't necessarily work. Again, what works for one may not work for another. I think doing a pre-make, like a prequel and a remake together, showing, the trial, showing, kind of, even if you did it as a TV series, you could have most of the series as kind of like a murder mystery, psychological horror type thing. Kids are disappearing, they're finding dead bodies, the parents are freaking out, the police are looking for somebody, and then they ended up catching Freddy, and then you go through, they signed the whole papers wrong and whatever else, blah 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 blah. You could even take elements from what John Saxton wanted to do, because John Saxton wrote a whole thing about,
for someone that I didn't feel like would have cared about Nightmare on Elm Street.
He did.
John Saxton, he did.
Yeah. He had a lot of respect for the source material, which is pretty cool.
He did.
And his, dude, it was crazy. And his really, like, Freddy was actually innocent, and it was like Charles Manson that did it.
Mm-hmm.
and like his weird cult type thing, and Freddy just got like blamed for it. Which I think that's a cool, not the Charles Manson bit, that's a little out there, but I think the idea of having Freddy really being innocent and they killed an innocent man, but that's what made him want revenge. I think that's actually kind of a cool thing. And they almost did it in the remake, and then they ruined it in the last like 10 minutes when you realize it's like the entire time, like you think, man, Freddy was an innocent guy that they killed. Like you almost kind of feel bad for him, and then you realize he actually did it, and he's like, oh, never mind, he's like a scuzz-sucking slime ball.
Never mind, he's just a piece of shit. Yeah. No, I get it. But I think what John Saxon had in mind was actually pretty unique, and I kind of like that idea of playing with the idea that maybe Freddy was innocent.
Right. Well, and it would have, if you did that, whether it's a TV series, whether it's a prequel, it would have to be a slow burn, right? It would have to be something that you kind of slowly build, and you feel tension building as, you know, the parents start to run out of ideas. I mean, and when the police system has failed them, and when the court has failed them, they take matters into their own hands, and that's when they go track him down and burn him. And maybe the last 15 minutes of the film is when Freddy dies and is reborn, and then you jump. And you can even have the cast ready for the second film. And the second film can be the traditional remake with Nancy and Ron and all of the other characters from the 1984 film.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, maybe the end of this prequel film, or at the end of season 1 of this prequel series, that's when Freddy becomes actual burned demon Freddy, and he starts haunting their dreams. That, I mean, could you imagine that buildup of the trial, seeing him, you know, commit these crimes and everything, and seeing the parents kind of slowly freak out and descend into madness, and then suddenly at the end, after they kill him, that's when you get burned Freddy. He, you know, he's dragging the glove across the wall with the sparks and stuff like that. I mean, that could be a really, really cool way to end a film and build hype into another one. You know what I mean? Another one. I don't think just doing a traditional remake of the original film again, right out of the gate, is a super great idea. Personally, I don't think it's a great idea.
No. I get
but that's my take. Like, I know other people might have a different idea. There are some people that are in the camp that, hey, the sequels were successful, like just do a sequel to Freddy's Dead, like something like that. I think it's been a little too long. I think it's been way too.
You think
been
people
a while.
Probably wouldn't have cared? I think the only thing it'd have is a cult following.
Right, and I think, I mean, we've talked about this on the Purely and Simply Evil shows, like going back through them. I mean, they revamped the rules like every single time. There were new rules and new, you know, I don't think that would work as well as they would want it to. So that's my take. Do you have any thoughts on where Elm Street should go from here?
I mean, I'll probably be in the camp where I think he's charismatic enough to end up as a TV show. If I'm being completely honest, I feel like he's charismatic enough to like want to be in multiple seasons. And as the same as what's going on with Chucky, which I mean personally, I haven't heard much news of how Chucky's been doing, other than what I've heard like a while back.
I didn't watch it. But
I heard that it was things. I heard it was like really getting a lot of good traction. So for someone as charismatic as Chucky too, because if you think about it, one of the main things that made Chucky so famous was the fact that he was like a bad mouth serial killer that just, you know, people kind of like awkwardly kind of root for, because he's just like that charismatic on the screen. So I could see the same thing for Freddy, because like over the years, you know, like it's kind of hard to like bring back the scary aspects of Freddy as opposed to what they did with Michael Myers, because Freddy's already got that TV personality of like MTV Freddy, and like of him wanting to break the fourth wall and stuff like that. Like that stuff is already like something that's like well known within the community, whether you know it or not. And I I think that if they ever were to like revamp the thing, I could totally see the actions of it being a TV show. And I at least would want that to happen because I thoroughly would take the time to watch a show like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well,
You know?
and here's the other thing.
Also, because I'm not really all that interested in like watching a movie and then waiting for the trilogy thing to happen. I'd much rather like I'm more in regards to like content. I'm much more happy with coming back a week later after the next episode popped up and be like, "Ooh, what happened this time?"
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, what did Freddy do this weekend, guys?
Yeah. Well, and let me back up to what I was saying earlier too. You mentioned like the TV personality side of him. Like, I don't think if you do either way, if you do a series or if you do a prequel kind of film.
See, that's the thing. I feel like you would cut down on the charisma of Freddy.
Well,
you don't want to go back. You would want to go back to like the more sinister, playful, playing with your food kind of attitude that Freddy was known for, and like Freddy 1 and 2. So
here's
minus
the
70s erotica, 80s weird tropes that I got in Freddy's back.
If you're gonna do it, if you're gonna do Freddy again, and I think if you're gonna start all over with a new actor, and whether you do the prequel thing, whether you do a remake, whether you do a TV series that's kind of a little bit of both, like whatever the case is, I don't think you need to go the Freddy's Nightmares route where he's jumping up and down and playing air guitar and like being silly like he's a PBS cartoon at 8 a.m. Like, I don't think you need that. I think you need to play it almost too dark. Like he can make jokes and he can be funny, but as an audience member, I think you almost need, like, you know when somebody makes a joke, like a comedian makes a joke that's so dark that you almost laugh, but you're not even laughing at the joke itself. You're just laughing because it's like, oh my god, they
uncomfortable.
Went there.
Yeah.
Like I think you have to make him so, like, the jokes he does make and the quirky things he says have to be so dark and so sinister and so like pushing the boundary of what's even okay to say, that I think it would almost be like, did he just say that? Like, that's, oh my god, like that's too much. You know what I mean? I think that's how dark you have to go with Freddy. And even if you're gonna do the prequel thing and you show him as like a regular human being and then as the demon Freddy, I think you almost do it as like a, not that you have to dive deep enough that he actually has a split personality, but the human side of him can be super, fake, and he acts like he's this little guy who could never do anything like that. But then you get full on the other side of him. Like, if you got somebody with a really, really killer acting range that could turn that on and off, where, you see him faking it out in the courtroom or to whoever, he acts like this innocent dude who could never hurt a fly. But then when you see him actually about to hurt somebody, even in his human form, like if you saw him trying to, kill one of the kids or something, if you saw him in his human form and he turned on that sick, sinister, like he's being funny but only to himself kind of thing, it could be like, oh, you know what I mean? And I think that's how serious and dark you have got to play Freddy. So
I get that.
So
would you much rather? Let me ask you this: do you think you would enjoy like a film or like a TV show that had where the main character is Freddy, but it'd be kind of like a fourth wall break kind of thing? You know what I mean? Like where he's like kind of like narrating himself, like you're watching the story unfold with him as well.
I would. Maybe it would depend on how well it was done. I would almost prefer Freddy, if you're going to do a prequel kind of thing, to almost be a side character. Not a side character. I mean, he's still the main villain, obviously.
But like the main character is someone else.
You don't even see it from the kids' perspective because, I mean, think about it. They were little kids at that point. It's not like you're getting like the teenager high school perspective of it until he's already like a dream demon. You know what I mean? If you like formulating that story from the parents' perspective and seeing them slowly lose their mind as kids are disappearing and they're doing everything they can to protect their kid and it's still not enough, that could be really effective. Like from a storytelling perspective, that could be great. And then when you do see Freddy, in the moments where Freddy is, either, I don't even know how you would portray it. Like, I didn't do anything.
You're about to act it out.
I was, but then I knew that would probably not prove my point in the way I wanted it to. Like seeing Freddy being that innocent, like fake, he couldn't hurt a fly. He's this little scrawny dude who,
like victim of the justice system,
playing the victim thing, and then seeing him turn it on, like that could be really effective. And then in the next film or the season 2 or whatever, then you can turn it on a little bit and you can show a little bit more of Freddy. You can dive into his psyche a little bit more, like things like that. But I would formulate it if it were me from the parents' perspective, at least at the beginning, because I think that could be really, really scary. Even psychologically, like, yes, it's still a slasher. Yes, you can still have slasher-esque scenes and moments throughout, but like, I think from a story perspective, seeing that go down from a parent's perspective could be really, really, really scary. And I think you could do a lot with that. So, I mean, could I see it from Freddy's perspective? Sure. But it would just depend. It would really depend.
I gotcha. Well,
so
each one of their experiences. I think a TV show would personally be a lot more influential and something that would grab a lot more people, I would say, because, easy for a movie to just grab butts on seats just from the title alone, but to have a TV show and see it steadily grow more and more with how good either the writing is or how the performance are or just like the name itself bringing people in, like I agree, I would agree with like that picking up a lot more steam.
Yeah.
And I don't even know what streaming service would even have that one. Like
I would almost
like I could see Paramount having it, honestly, or HBO maybe, honestly, or for that matter, I mean, who knows? Maybe AMC could have it. I don't think
AMC would have the balls to go dark enough.
I think they could, honestly, man. With the stuff that they've been doing with like Dead City,
HBO would have the balls to go dark enough.
You think so?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, if you think about it, that makes sense. Oh, then fuck it, Showtime. Then Showtime would have the balls to do it too.
Yeah,
like at that point.
Yeah, but listen, everybody, let us know in the comments below, where do you think the Elm Street franchise should go next? What should the next adventure be for the one and only Fredward Krueger? Let us know. Let us know what you think. Real quick, let me go over to the chat before we get rolling with the Oppenheimer chat. Hatchet Boy said it should go back to New Line Cinema. I agree. I think that'd be cool if it's gonna go to somebody, man. Although, I don't really have a strong opinion on who gets it, as long as they play their cards right and tell a good story. Now, does New Line Cinema deserve it? Absolutely. New Line Cinema, Freddy built New Line Cinema, so I think it'd be kind of poetic, but. Again, they would have to do something.
Freddy built New Line Cinema. They really did, though. I mean, from what you told me in the commentary.
They call New Line Cinema the house that Freddy built. Like, that's literally its nickname because it was nothing before Nightmare on Elm Street, and then it became, New Line Cinema. So, He, She, We, Big Boobs is in the chat. What's going on, buddy? Florence was one of them crazy ladies in Oppenheimer. She was.
She definitely was. We'll talk about that in a second, I guess.
We'll get there. Hatchet Boy said if they start it with whole new characters, not a remake again or a new reboot. Yeah, I could see for the
no legacy Nancy or Lancey.
Yeah. Lancey.
No legacy
Gary
characters
Busey
coming back. Like just...
Oh my God, Gary Busey is Freddy Krueger. Whoo, that could be terrifying.
No, I couldn't see that.
That'd be scary. I don't know about
Yeah.
that. He'd be high on coke like the whole time. Is Gary Busey like okay? Like I haven't heard anything about him like in forever.
The last time I saw him was in a movie called The Entourage. If you guys know what I'm talking about. That was
He's almost 80.
Yeah. Gary Busey is what I imagine Val Kilmer if he went buck wild. Did you agree?
Yeah. Here's a so I typed in Gary Busey. The very
Gary
first news
Busey.
story I see, Gary Busey. The first news story I see. The first two
boy.
things I see is when Gary Busey stopped production for spiritual reasons from a month ago, and then from August 24th of last year, actor Gary Busey literally caught with his pants down after sex on a park bench. Those are the two. That's the first two things I see when I type in Gary Busey to the old Googles.
Gary Busey just being like that though.
Listen, man, coke.
Is that what he
does
was
stuff,
on? Is
dude.
that what he's on?
I think so, from what I understand.
Jesus Christ.
The thing, he used to be a good actor though. Like that's the thing. Like it wasn't like he was a terrible actor. Like he had a lot of good roles, man. He had a lot of really good roles. I don't know. I don't know.
Wait, let me go through his like movies.
I
I
mean,
I remember him from Point Break.
Yeah, he was in
and
Rookie of the Year. He was in Predator 2. I liked him in Rookie
Yeah.
of the Year. That's a good movie. I haven't seen that in a long time.
I forgot he is in Lethal Weapon too.
Yep.
He is in that Lethal Weapon. Yeah.
He was in the original A Star Is Born from '76 as well. Barbarossa, Entourage. I mean,
That's one I've seen him from.
He's been around the block. It's not like he's had a terrible career. You know, I don't know, man.
I think
Gotta
I've
get
seen him
the
from
old,
another movie, but I just can't remember what it is. Is it? No, it's not. No, it's not. Anything. Where he was young, like a young Gary Busey. I remember young Gary Busey in some film. And I think it was Lethal Weapon.
Gary
At least.
Busey.
If you guys don't know, he said something that day. I forgot what it was about. But yeah, that was funny.
I don't remember. It was early in our show, in our channel's history.
I think we were still doing like pre-recorded
we were talking
stuff.
about something, and I mentioned Gary Busey, and we laughed for like 20 minutes, like just.
I think it's because we saw like what Gary Busey looked like now. It was like a weird picture of Gary Busey.
I think I put it as like a standalone video on the channel. Like I clipped it and put it on the channel. You'll have to go check it out. I'll have to go find it. I don't even remember what it was, but we were cracking up.
Mm-hmm.
Hatchet also said, I like your idea, Brad. I think they should go with that. Thanks, man. You should wait till you hear the idea I have for Halloween. I hope to make some people mad with it. No, I'm kidding. I think I have a legitimately good idea.
I have a good claim to the Iron Throne. No, I'm kidding.
I think I have a legitimately good idea as to what to do with Halloween. Speaking of, I've seen rumors that we're going to get announcements about the Halloween franchise at Halloween 45 this year. Too early. Now, if it's Season of the Witch, that's a different thing. Go at it.
Hey, do it.
Go wild with Season of the Witch. That's fine.
I think Season of the Witch should have. It was. I think it's overdue. If that makes sense. Like too overdue for me to want it to be a project. Now.
Yeah. Well,
you know what I mean.
I mean, though, here's the thing. Like, I don't want any more like Michael stuff. Like, Michael needs a cigarette break. Like, we have milked him raw for the last 5 years. I mean,
that's a phrase.
Yeah, like it's time for him to like sit down for a few minutes.
Raw.
You know, you know what I mean. I think it's time for Michael to chillax.
I've never milked someone that raw.
Are they milking Ghostface raw? Like, are we?
Jesus.
I mean, I don't know. I think
Ghostface.
it's time for him to take a break.
I think Ghostface knew that. I think this audience knew that Ghostface was going to get milked, if that makes sense. When you start making fun of your own film and start making it hella meta, you know exactly what you're doing.
Well,
That
the
makes
thing
sense.
is, take Season of the Witch, go wild with it, do its own thing. Season of the Witch is, I think, a good placeholder and a good. It'll keep everybody's appetite nice and wet with the Halloween thing, but it's also
out of pocket shit.
but it's also not gonna it keeps interest in the franchise without milking Michael to death, without milking Michael Ross. So yeah. But I don't know. I hope we don't get any Michael Myers announcements at Halloween 45, unless it's like a video game or something like that.
Let the
That'd be
man.
cool.
You should let him sleep.
Yeah, he needs to sleep. He needs to chill out.